Let's start with something you might see every day, a raw ear of corn. If you take that corn, dry the kernels, and grind it into fine flour, it looks completely different. But the real difference is on the price tag. A bag of raw, unprocessed maize grains might sell for very little at a local market. But once it's milled, neatly packaged, and placed on a supermarket shelf as baking flour, that exact same corn sells for 3 or 4 times as much. This simple process is called value addition, taking a raw material and running it through a machine to create a finished product multiplies its worth. So if processing multiplies the money, why wouldn't every farmer and every nation just sell the finished product? This animated map shows the sheer scale of natural wealth across Africa. You can clearly see massive oil deposits in the north and west, gold in the south, thick timber forests right in the center, and incredibly rich agricultural zones in the east. In East Africa, millions of families rely on harvesting these raw materials directly from the earth, like handpicking fresh coffee berries from lush green bushes. In Central Africa, the landscape shifts to heavy industry. Deep inside massive open-pit mines, industrial vehicles scoop up vast amounts of cobalt and copper, the exact materials needed to build batteries for the world's electric cars and smartphones. But here is the paradox. Having the richest soil and the most valuable minerals on Earth does not automatically make a country rich. If a nation can only export these raw materials without refining them into finished goods, it misses out entirely on the massive profits of value addition. To build the factories that turn raw copper into wire or raw coffee into roasted powder, you need advanced machinery, and that machinery costs a staggering amount of money. Many African nations lack the saved national funds, or capital, required to build these large-scale processing plants. There is also a shortage of the people needed to run them. This illustrates an economic hurdle known as brain drain. Highly trained professionals, like doctors and engineers, leave their home countries for developed nations. The home country spends its limited resources educating these experts. But when they move abroad, the foreign nations are the ones who actually benefit from all that valuable expertise. Without enough local capital to build factories, and without enough expert engineers to keep them running, nations get stuck. They are forced to sell their raw goods at very low prices, and then turn around and buy back expensive finished products from other countries. Beyond the factories, the workforce itself faces immense pressure. Frequent outbreaks of diseases, like malaria, weaken the active labor force. Instead of saving money to start local businesses, families are forced to empty their pockets just to cover emergency medical bills. This financial strain is compounded by a demographic challenge that economists call the dependency ratio. This balance scale demonstrates how the ratio works. On one side, you have a relatively small group of active, working-age adults. On the other side, they must financially support a massive, heavy number of children and elderly people who cannot work. When every dollar a worker earns goes directly toward basic survival and healthcare for their dependents, there is simply no money left over at the end of the month to invest in new local industries. Even if a community manages to save money, political instability can erase those gains overnight. Internal conflicts and civil wars force millions of citizens to flee their homes, leaving their productive farms and businesses completely abandoned. As armed conflict spreads, it physically destroys the essential arteries of a country's economy. Bridges are blown up, railway lines are torn apart, and electrical grids are shut down. And when the time comes to rebuild, widespread public corruption often acts as a final roadblock. Funds set aside to fix those broken roads and hospitals are frequently embezzled, secretly diverted away from public projects and straight into private bank accounts. You can have all the funding, a healthy workforce, and the best engineers in the world, but if you don't have a safe, paved road to transport your finished goods to a market, a factory simply cannot operate. These are serious systemic leaks, but they are not permanent. To break the cycle and build self-sustaining economies, African nations are implementing clear, practical measures to fix them. First, governments must protect their public savings. By setting up strict, independent auditing institutions, countries can track their money, arrest corrupt officials, and recover the stolen funds needed to build modern infrastructure. At the same time, the education system has to shift. Instead of just teaching classroom theory, schools need to focus heavily on hands-on vocational training, giving young people the practical, mechanical, and technical skills required to build and maintain complex machinery. Once a nation secures political peace, protects its development funds, and trains a highly skilled workforce, it finally has a solid foundation. It is ready for the next step, industrialization. This brings us right back to our original concept, value addition. Instead of shipping away raw dirt and unroasted beans, the goal is to process those local raw materials locally. This is what successful industrial processing looks like in practice. Inside specialized factories, local workers operate advanced machinery to clean, grind, and package those raw materials, turning them into high-value export goods right at home. And rather than depending entirely on buyers across the ocean, African nations can use regional trade networks, like the East African Community, to buy and sell these finished goods directly with their neighboring countries. The minerals deep in the ground and the crops growing in the soil are a great starting point, but a country's ultimate wealth is a skilled, healthy population capable of taking that raw potential, adding value to it, and forging their own economic independence.